Hello and welcome to what I hope will be a series of videos covering my 2020 season racing with Club 100. This is the first time I've ever done any form of competitive motorsport. I've done track days for a number of years. I think it's getting on for about 10 years now. I've also done quite a lot of online racing with iRacing. I think I've been a member there about 7-8 years. So I'm not completely ignorant when it comes to trying to drive quickly or trying to drive with other people, albeit in a virtual sense and not in the real world. At the end of last year, inspired by the videos that Jimmy Broadbent and Super GT have been putting out about their experience racing in Club 100, I started investigating to see what it was all about, whether it would be possible, how much it cost, all those sorts of things. And I realised that for about the same cost as a day's worth of track fees, I could actually go racing. And this is something I've always wanted to do for a very, very long time, probably like a lot of people. I've always been interested in motorsport. As I said, I've done a lot of track days. I also spent 5-6 years as a motorsport photographer doing some work for Motorsport Vision. So I've been around motorsport for pretty much all my life, but never thought I would actually get to go and race. Like a lot of people, I suspect, I thought it was beyond my financial means to be able to go racing, and also, it consumes a huge amount of time. So, yeah, I genuinely thought I couldn't do it. After having started investigating Club 100, I realised that I could go and do it. So about Christmas time 2019, I took the decision to register for Club 100, and with the intention of competing in Sprint 60, which is 30-minute sprint races, because I thought that would give me a good opportunity to learn the cars and basically get my skills up to a reasonable level with a decent amount of track time. What I hadn't anticipated was just how popular Club 100 is, and it turns out that Sprint 60 was massively oversubscribed in my weight category, so I wouldn't be able to do that. So rather than give up on the idea, I decided to sign up for the Sprint series and use that basically as a learning year. Given that I don't know any of the tracks, had no experience in the karts, I could use Sprint as a learning year and then potentially race in Sprint 60 in 2021. So basically, before I came to the first race weekend at Buckmore Park, I had never raced a proper kart. I've done some corporate karting, but as most people know, they are very, very different beasts. I had done some testing, so I did the pre-season test with Club 100, also at Buckmore Park in January. Conditions were not great. It was cold, it was wet. I really didn't adjust to the kart at all. Found it very difficult to get it to turn into the corners. In fact, if anyone tells you that a front-wheel drive car understeers badly on track, I suggest they try driving a kart on slicks in the wet, and that's a world of understeer that's just completely... You just don't realise what you just can't believe how bad it is, basically. So I signed up for another test, so a half-hour test before the racing kicked off on Sunday. So actually what you're watching now is some footage of my test session. I definitely made progress, still not quick enough, but given my previous experience and the fact that in the space of an hour I span 6 times, as JV very kindly pointed out to me on the telephone, that it was much better, basically. I managed to drive for half an hour. I think I might have spun once, and that was in response to somebody else's incident, and I started to go quicker. So genuinely much happier with the kart and how it felt, and the fact I could get it to turn into the corners. So basically that set me up for my first ever race. Now, the Sprint series, you basically get 3 heats of, I think it's 7 minutes, and then a final of 12 minutes. Now, originally I should have been competing in super heavyweight. So Club 100 sprint races are subdivided by weight category. Because I am only just the wrong side of 50 and I'm tall, basically I'm what's called a super heavyweight, which is more than 98 kilograms. But the way the sprint races work, effectively everyone in the class gets a front, middle and rear grid slot drawn at random. So JV, who runs Club 100, and I cannot speak highly enough of the Club 100 organisation, absolutely amazing. The amount of work these guys put in, everything runs really smoothly, and JV, who runs the whole show, does a fantastic job. So he got in contact with me and said basically, based upon your experience of testing and also your lack of experience being a novice, we've decided to put you in Class 3 in heavyweight because all of the Class 3 runners, who are all novices, will start at the back of the grid. And that was a brilliant decision. It was the best thing he could have done for me, to be honest. I could have been on pole position my first ever race with a bunch of very experienced, very quick people around me, and I think that would have been a recipe for an unhappy, a bunch of unhappy karters, both me and the people around me. So it was great to start at the back. It gave me a chance to really get a bit of experience in my first race weekend and not feel under a huge amount of pressure. So kudos to JV for making that decision, and also giving us novices the chance to come into this series and race. It's pretty daunting to have to turn up having never done this before in your life and basically end up with a bunch of people who are very quick. But I have to say also, all the people racing Club 100, all my fellow competitors, are really welcoming. Everyone's happy to chat, talk about their experience, give you some tips. It's a really nice environment to be in. So that kind of gives you a bit of an introduction about what this is all about and what I was planning to do. And we're basically going to very soon switch over to footage of my first ever race, which actually was Heat 1, so I was first out, my first ever race in a kart, and it didn't go too badly. So this is my first ever Club 100 race, Heat 1 at Buckmore Park. I think I'm starting about 15th on the grid, something like that. First ever rolling start. Around me are other Class 3 runners, so they're generally novices or people who didn't manage to get into the B final in last season. So one would imagine probably a similar level of experience to me. So I basically fluffed the start. Look, I've given them miles in front of me before we get to T1. It's incredibly wet. I'm trying to stay around the outside as much as possible in the wet karting line. We're coming down to hairpin 1, and the carnage kicks off immediately. This guy flies off in front of me. 3 karts managed to tangle in hairpin 1. Now we're coming to hairpin 2, and we're going to get somebody else go off the track. He's going to get sandwiched, and off he goes. So we've had 4 corners, and about 5 or 6 karts have all gone off in front of me, which I must admit I thought would happen, and I said to myself, just take it easy. If you stay on the black stuff, don't do anything stupid, you'll probably pick up places. And another spinner coming into paddock bend. And a bit of hand gestures in front of me as well. About to come up to Garda, which is a critical corner for the lap. You really need to get as much speed out of here as possible, heading up the hill past Cafe Curve. And we're about to come up and complete lap 1. So the very first lap, I've managed to go up from, I think, 15th up to 10th or 11th place. I go very wide there, just really no grip. Back up to T1, and as you can see, I'm staying quite wide, and already someone's passed me on the inside. I mean, completely expected. These guys are, most of them, much more experienced than me. I think that guy was one of the people who was further up the field, so basically a regular heavyweight or super heavyweight runner. But I wasn't expecting necessarily to be able to fight, you know, at the front, so I'm just quite happy kind of doing my own thing, hopefully not doing anything stupid, and taking advantage of others' mistakes. And here we go, yet again, the guy that was a lot quicker than me overtook me. He's now spun out, going down the hill, and we're coming back to paddock again. I didn't bother getting him near the apex. It's clearly overrated. It's much better staying way out wide. Another one of the faster runners back in down the inside through Garda, and we're back up the hill again. You can see from the way the car in front of me is behaving that there really is a great deal of grip. They're sliding a lot, particularly on the throttle. These are 125cc two-strokes. They're fairly dead low down, but once they come into the power band, they're very spiky. Another spinner in front of me. So as you can see, conditions are really quite tricky. There's people making mistakes left, right and centre. They're probably being a bit too aggressive. And as I said, I basically thought, you know, it's fine, just don't make any mistakes. And we have another one going off on the outside. Now, he's basically just understeered wide, got on the paint, and he had no chance of turning the car in. I mean, you can generally see that the people around me are quite a bit quicker than I am, which again is fine. I'm perfectly happy with that. You know, my main aim here in this race, in this heat, was really just to stay on the track, don't do anything stupid, and hope to benefit from others' over-exuberance. But as you will see later on, unfortunately, that's not quite the case. And again, somebody who was much quicker than me span out earlier on in the race and has now come back past me. But you know, the good thing is, although I'm not the fastest, I was lapping relatively consistently, and I think picking up a little bit of pace as the race went on as well. So you know, generally quite positive. You can see from the tip of my foot, just in shot here, that I'm feathering the throttle a lot to try and stop the rear from spinning up. I mean, it is quite controllable, as I say, as I spin. So, classic mistake there. Got the rear tyre on the white line as soon as I touched the brake. These carts only have a rear brake, there's no front brakes. Basically the rear just locked immediately and spun me round. Unfortunately, all those people who I managed to get past because they make mistakes have all gone back past me. So I think I'm now down in possibly about 14th. So having been as high as I think 10th or 11th on lap 1, I've now dropped back down to about 14th. Which again is fine. Conditions aren't really getting significantly better. You know, the main thing was just really to gain some experience and to finish. You can see I lost about 5 seconds or something on that lap by that small half spin. But you know, this is all valuable learning experience for me. Back through T1, heading through T2 to the hairpins. Hairpin 1 and hairpin 2, to be honest, were a bit of a nightmare for me in the first test in January. I think I probably had more spins at those corners than anywhere else, basically locking up the rear of the car coming into it. Again, you can see someone else has made a mistake. It's quite easy to do. I mean, clearly the guys who've got experience in the wet can manage to do this with no real problem, but those of us with not so much experience, it is genuinely tricky driving in the wet. You're balancing the brake and the throttle a lot to try and keep the car pointing in the direction that you want. As I mentioned earlier on, because these are two-stroke engines, they're quite peaky, and as the power comes in, the rears will spin up quite easily. And although it is fun to slide a car under power, it's not really the fastest way around the track. And it's quite easy to also just apply too much throttle, spin the wheels a bit too much, and then just end up facing the wrong direction. But as you can see, this guy in front of us who'd previously span, I'm managing to keep up with him. He's not disappearing. He's not driving off into the distance, and you can see he's struggling a bit with the grip. So quite positive. And you can see he literally made the same mistake I did. He put the back tyre on the white line, hit the brake and span, then caused me to spin in sympathy. I'm a very sympathetic person, as all my friends will tell you, so clearly I wanted to spin with him, but I have made a place back up through his misfortune. But you can see just how easy it is to do. Those white lines in the wet are absolutely lethal, and because of the nature of the kart and the braking system, it's incredibly easy to do that. You know, if you try and brake on the paint, you are going to be heading in the wrong direction very quickly. But nonetheless, you know, his mistake was my good fortune. I managed to get going a lot quicker than he did. He was much further off the track than I was, and I only kind of had a little bit of a half spin. So very positive from that point of view. I think yes, final lap board. So final lap of my first ever race in Club 100. It's been quite exciting. A lot has happened around me. The leaders have vanished, but that's fine. You know, the main thing is I learned quite a lot through this first race. I dealt with the conditions reasonably okay. If I hadn't made that silly mistake coming into hairpin 2 and put the back wheel on the white line, I probably would have finished 11th or 12th, which I think would have been a good result. Would have been amongst the higher up amongst the Class 3 runners. So, you know, positive from that respect. Not really consistent enough, not really fast enough compared with the other people, but again, with my lack of experience, my first ever race in the wet, I'm not feeling too disappointed. Having a nice power slide through Garda on the last lap, clearly I was obviously feeling very confident at that point. Probably had no idea how close the guy was behind me, I honestly don't know. So here we are, coming across the line, checkered flag. Yeah, I survived. I didn't do anything stupid, I didn't ruin anybody else's race, and I didn't finish last. But as you'll see, it didn't really stay that way for the rest of the day. Conditions, you can see the sky's getting a bit lighter here. Conditions did change, the track did start to dry up, and as you'll see in the next video, which I think might be, I can't remember if it's my second or third heat, but it's basically one of the heats where it was completely dry. I went faster, but I really didn't adjust to the conditions as fast as everyone else. Everyone else was much, much faster than me. Okay, so this I think is my second heat, which was heat 7 of the day. As you can see now, the track is actually quite dry. I'm starting quite high up in the Class 3 runners. Within Class 3 we do still get front, middle and back grid starting positions, so I'm quite close to the front of Class 3 for all the good it does me. As I said, you can see it's pretty dry here. We're coming up to the line for the start. Again, I kind of fluffed the start. I'm not quick enough. These guys have all taken, you know, 5-10 feet on me, and again someone else comes through much quicker than me. It wouldn't have been as easy for him if I'd been closer to the front, but at least you can see here it's much drier than it was in the previous heat. We're actually now taking a dry line, so cutting in towards the apex of hairpin 2. It's now getting much closer to being flat out through the S's and down the hill. And as you can see, they're pulling away from me. They're all pulling away pretty much out of hairpin 2. I'm not on the throttle early enough, and probably a bit too gentle coming down the hill. This guy was quick, and I think you can see he was punted off out of T2, and you can see he's basically swarming all over this guy, and he's passed him on the way up the hill to Cafe Curve. So, you know, not really bothered about him going past me. But you can see the others are pulling away quite readily. I'm just really not on the power early enough coming up the hairpins. All of this is very, very different in the dry, obviously. You can see braking later, heading towards the apex of hairpin 1. Definitely getting a late apex on hairpin 2 to try and maximise the drive through the S's. In fully dry conditions, this is flat out. Through the S's, and is flat out down the hill. You might have a little lift coming into this corner, and then it should still be flat here, and then braking into paddock. But I really didn't have the confidence to do that in these conditions. You can still see the tarmac looks a little damp, but I think basically it was fully dry, and you can see the difference. The fact now that the guy in front of me is basically vanished. They're probably about 4 to 5 seconds a lap faster than me. But that's fine. You know, again, this is all about learning. This is all about gaining experience with the machinery, learning the circuit, and just basically getting better. Much better through hairpin 1 there than the previous lap. Actually got near the apex. Hairpin 2, again, pretty much hit the apex on the way out, and now we're on the gas again, but not early enough. Probably need to be on the gas basically as you hit the apex. Down the hill, this is a fun part of the track in the dry. You don't realise how physical these little things are to drive. Oh, I've had a spin. Excellent. First time in the dry. What can I say? Clearly ran out of talent at that point. I imagine I probably locked the rear brake coming down the hill, trying to brake too deep, and as the rear end started to lock, basically I should have let the brake pressure off and turned the car into the corner. The front tyres will actually slow the car down quite a lot if you turn in, so you definitely could be off the brake and turning the car, and it would still probably make the corner. But still back on it again. You know, it's not affected me too badly that I've made a mistake. Disappointing, obviously. That was nice through hairpin 2. That was nice. Flat out again, heading back down the hill through the S's. Let's see if I can not make the same mistake coming into paddock. Slightly better. Bit too, yeah, I think I really need to be over towards the middle of the track, although that wasn't a bad run through paddock. Coming up to Garda, do I make the apex? Almost, but not quite, and now we're heading back up the hill again. 54-second lap, so I'm going quicker than I have done previously. Again, not as fast as the guys in front, clearly, and that is a problem and something I need to work on, but I'm gradually getting quicker. And I think my fastest lap across the weekend was a low 53. So still, every session I went out, I went faster. You know, there's progression there. I am learning where the cart needs to be. I'm learning, you know, how to get it through the corners and when I need to be on the gas, etc. But you know, not fast enough at all, and I know that. And the other thing is clearly, don't make mistakes. Not spinning would help an awful lot. You know, I mean, that was only like a half spin, but basically the cart came to a complete stop once. At least now, I think 2 seasons ago, they weren't running centrifugal clutches in Club 100. So basically, if you span and you stalled the engine, that was it. You had to bump start it again. I've just been absolutely mobbed by the leaders. That's fairly fairly sobering, isn't it? Luckily, they caught me at a reasonably sensible place. I got out of their way. I didn't hold them up, and they're off again. It just shows you they've caught me inside, I think, 5 laps. Now, okay, I had a spin. The car came to a complete stop. They don't run very quickly when they stop completely. So, you know, I probably lost, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 seconds at that point. But again, hopefully, you know, won't have to worry. Yeah, well, hopefully, you won't have to worry about that too much going forward. It wasn't too bad. You know, I managed to keep out of their way. Didn't hold anyone up. Didn't ruin anyone's race, and just kept at it. I think we've got a couple more laps left to go. Back into hairpin 1, coming into hairpin 2. You can see it's blue sky now. So conditions improved an awful lot. Now, this guy in the red who's just gone past me, I actually think he was in my class and I let him past, which is a criminal error to make. In my defence, the different classes run different number plate colours. Super heavyweight and class 3 both run blue plates. I don't currently know who's in which class. The guy who I let through had a blue plate on. I think probably he was recovering from an incident earlier, and I didn't need to let him through. I certainly didn't see a blue light at that point. I was being far too generous. Basically, if I don't see a blue light in future, I'm going to block like hell. And if it turns out that they're not showing the blue flags or blue lights, and it's a leader, then I think I'll ask for forgiveness afterwards. Obviously, it's very difficult in the heat of the race to know who is in which class and who's where on the track. So basically, unless you get a very clear indication that someone is one of the leaders by the blue flags or blue lights, just don't know past. So final lap, again getting pretty much mobbed by a bunch of the other people. By this point I pretty much decided to let them past, it didn't really matter. Coming up to the line, checkered flag. Not great, but positive thing is that, compared with Heat 2, it was drier, I went quicker, and as we'll see in the little clip of the final, I went quicker again. So, very positive from that point of view. So rather than show the entire final race, because yet again I span twice, because conditions were very, very tricky. It went from fully dry to, or reasonably dry, to absolutely steaming wet, and I didn't adjust fast enough. So what I thought I'd do is put together a little comparison of a dry lap and a wet lap. This is actually from the same race. This is from the C final, which I started dead last and finished dead last. So definitely consistency there, which is always a good thing in a racing driver. But basically you can see the comparison. The blue dash is me in the dry, the red is me in the wet, and you can just see how far in front the car in the dry is. The dry car is now heading up to turn 1, and the wet car is only just coming through Cafe Corner. Some of you who know Buckmore Park may well be looking at this and wondering why the start-finish line is down near Cafe Corner. It's because the GPS from the GoPro 7, which is what you're seeing the video from, isn't accurate enough to distinguish between the start-finish line and the where the circuit cuts back from hairpin 2. So basically would come up with a very strange shape for Buckmore Park. So what I did was pick somewhere where I could get a lap time, and they were pretty close to the transponder times, if I'm honest, where I could get a lap time and it still worked. And as you see, I'm about to finish and I'm half a lap in front of my wet self.